And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Darnella Ford, award-winning author and expert multi-dimensional out-of-body traveler with an extensive background in quantum physics and neuroscience. Darnella, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
First of all, Jeff, we cannot start a podcast without gratitude entering the room. So from my heart to yours, thank you for having me back. Thank you for having me once, but then having me back. And I really want to give a shout out. You have a beautiful, beautiful tribe of viewers and audience. They showed me so much love and kindness. And I just want to thank everybody that wrote to me and took the time to connect with me. So thank you to the viewers and Jeff, and I'm ready to jump in.
Well, thank you for coming back. And I agree with you. I have an amazing audience, and I am very lucky to have them.
Yeah, you really are. They're really special. And some of your viewers are now part of my own, part and parcel of my own heart. So thank you for
great.
that.
That's great. There may be some people that are meeting you for the first time today. So can we quickly give a little bit of your background and how you got into OBEs and neuroscience?
Yes, quickly. My background, my field of study is quantum physics and neuroscience. I fell in love with the mysteries of the universe. I had 3 years of formal training, formal studies. And during my studies in 2006, I began having spontaneous out-of-body experiences because of the deep work that I was doing with my studies and energy work and energy exercises. So once I started having these OBEs, I just jumped in and began experimenting with this unique multi-dimensional experience that I was beginning to have, which was fascinating and mind-blowing, and meeting teachers and all kinds of animals and having all kinds of lessons and learning lessons and very profound experiences. I'm an award-winning author. My base started as a writer. I'm a writer at heart. So that's pretty much it, Jeff. I work with people all over the world. I facilitate expanded states of consciousness and helping people through their journey, through whatever things that they may be going through, and also facilitating bringing people into the Amazon rainforest for expanded states of consciousness. So it's a unique journey.
Well, you have been literally traveling in Peru and the Amazon, as well as astral journeying as well. Yeah. Tell us what's been going on.
Woo! Well, thank you, Jeff. In December, once again, I've been past 7 years, I've been traveling to and from the Amazon rainforest. I was very fortunate in 2019 to meet an incredible shaman, and he took me in his heart, and his family, they kind of took me in. And so I've been traveling back and forth. They have a location deep in the center of the Amazon rainforest. So I've been there working and studying shamanic culture and learning about all the different very profound medicines of the Amazon, the plant medicines. In Peru, I noticed this time on this journey, I began to have a very unique expanded state of out-of-body experiences. To me, that felt a little bit different than any one that I've ever had before. And if you'd like, I can jump into one that just that kind of set it off for me in Peru.
Sure, but before we go there, what do you think the opinions are of the shamans about so many Americans going down there and taking an interest in their work?
Well, it's so interesting. We're at a very unique time in human history. There's two different levels of answers I'm going to offer here. For the economy, for the country of Peru, especially for those areas, those remote areas in the jungle, the shamans, or I can just speak for my shaman, because I know him very well personally, and I know his family, kids and grandkids. They appreciate very much the revenue that the Europeans and the Americans and the Australians and other cultures bring to their land, because it enables my shaman to continue to do what he does. There obviously is some concern with potential exploitation of that area. And as humans, sometimes we can have a tendency to try to extract so much of the resources of the earth that it creates a burden or level of extinction in certain areas. Overall, it's welcome, but I think welcome with balance. welcome with balance.
Do you think that people have to be very careful when they go down there to find the right shaman because they could be
100%.
tricked?
100%. When I went in 2019, I had a calling to go. I had a calling to go in 2018. I went into a cave, and the cave literally started coming to me in my dreams and communicating with me. I knew I had to go to Peru. I was terrified to go to Peru. There are nightmare stories that happen of people, especially Americans, especially women, going by themselves. So I took a journey. I took a chance. I went, and I mean, the fear that I had was incredible. However, I trusted my light. I trusted my light and that this was the path for me. By the grace and the mercy of the universe, I found an incredible shaman of light. Now, I want to also say this, in the jungle itself, deep in the recesses of the jungle, it's 50-50. There are some shamans that are in service to what is called the darkness, and there are shamans in service to the light. And you want to definitely, if you're going to go and work and study and learn, you want to be working alongside a shaman who is in service to the light. So I felt I trusted my light, that my light would match with the light of someone who was in service to humanity. And I was very blessed, my experience, yeah.
All right. So tell us about these travels that you had.
Okay, so this one was in the hotel on the way out of the journey, out of the jungle. I have a stay over in the city of Iquitos, which is the port city into the jungle, because it's a trek to get in there. So you have a day to recover before you get back and head back to your home country. It was about 9 in the morning, and I was just spent from my time. I was really tired, and I said, "Let me take a little nap." And I know 9 o'clock is early to be taking a nap, but I needed a nap. I laid down, and what I noticed within 15 minutes of me laying down, I was laying on my right side. This was very unique what happened. I was in my body. I'm trying to explain this as best I can. I was in my body, aware of me sleeping, the body sleeping, but the consciousness awake and alert. From that moment, there was another form of consciousness deeply embedded within my human body, which would be considered maybe like an inner being, an inner spirit. That climbed out of my body. Strangest feeling, almost like it was literally climbing out of a coffin, but literally climbing up on my arms, climbing up and out. My inner being was climbing out of the body. What made this incredibly unique, Jeff, was because I still had the perspective of observing the inner being, which is me in spirit, but yet felt very independent of me, because in that moment, I didn't want to be climbing out of my body, but there I was. But I was fascinated by what was happening, because it appeared that there was another form of consciousness that was moving independently of my wishes in the moment. So I went with it. I said, okay, something is happening. Now, when the inner being climbed out, it began to move through what felt immediately into another dimension. When I went into this other dimension, there was a door, and the door was starting to close, and I reached out. Now, here's the thing, Jeff, I was that inner being. That was me. I had full conscious awareness as the inner being and full conscious awareness as the observer. So I was participating in the OBE and observing it simultaneously, if that makes sense.
It's like you're
You with
bilocated
me
or
so
something.
far, right?
Right. It's like
Yeah,
you're,
it was incredible, right? So the door that was closing, I reached out to open it and enter. What I noticed immediately from the observer side, that it was physical. The door felt physical. I thought my hand would pass through. No, it felt very much like a physical door. On the other side of that door, there was a woman there who looked like a goddess or a priestess, and she had these long braids and she was dancing. I felt like I knew her. So I followed her in without hesitation, no fear. Now, when I say no fear, I'm talking about the inner spirit, the spirit part of me. The part of me laying on the bed was like, wait a minute, I was observing this. What was interesting was as I followed this being into the back room, she disappeared. Now, here's where it gets very, very interesting. I am that spirit, but I'm also this being laying in the bed taking a nap who's watching this. In that moment, the spirit flips around and it starts addressing me, almost like primary consciousness, secondary consciousness. And it said to me, don't you know who I am? And I knew that this spirit was talking to me. Don't you know who I am? I am God. And immediately I felt the sensation of this rupture through the top of my head and an explosion into light where there was no form. Now, in that moment, everything dissolved. Secondary and primary were no longer separate. I became pure light, but I want to say without boundary or border, just infinite expression of pure light. That was it. And
Let me,
then back in the body.
when you entered the pure light, you weren't observing anymore. You were just
No,
one consciousness in the light. You were the light.
there you go. Yeah. I was one consciousness manifested as pure light that had no end, that had no border, that had no beginning, that had no boundary.
Which you and maybe many other people call God.
You know, it's so funny. I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about I just remember what stood out to me when I came back and when I returned to my body. I sat straight up because I'm always sitting straight up in my bed. And I sat up and I got up in my hotel room and I did something very weird. I know this is going to sound weird, but this is what I did. I started walking back and forth in my hotel room and I started repeating what was said. Don't you know who I am? I am God. Don't you know who I am? Jeff, the reason I did that is because if I were to tell you that today, I feel like there would be a little bit of hesitancy or a little bit of something that doesn't feel fully activated. But in this space, there was no apology, no hesitation, no need for validation or confirmation. It just was what it was. This being was so confident. And it said, almost like, don't you know who I am? And it wasn't arrogant. It was fully embodied knowing in a way that I feel like it can be difficult for humans to get to that level of full awareness. Like, don't you know who I am? I am. But the way that it was said, the energy behind it was transformative. So I wanted to capture. And sometimes I will just walk down the street saying that. Why do I do that? Because I want to connect to that power. I want to connect to that because so many times we feel limited as human beings, but that being was not limited in any way, shape, or form. Don't you know who I am? I am God.
If we step back and look at the big picture, are you saying that there's a piece of God in all of us, a little piece, a divine spark, or are we all God collectively split into trillions of pieces?
Well, it's so funny. I believe both simultaneously are truth. I can tell you what I know for sure. There is something inside of me that is intelligent, alive, aware, powerful, sure. And I know this because from that moment, it began to step out. And why my consciousness fractured into the space where I was observing this and also participating, I can't tell you that. Can't tell you why that happened. Just that it has happened multiple times. So now I know I it shifted everything for me because I almost feel like I knock on my chest sometimes and I'll say, I know you're in there. I know that you're in there. Sometimes like, come on, where's the power? Like, I know that you're in there, right? I only can say that confidently because I've had that experience, which I think it's different when people tell you something and when you read about something and when you go and get discernment on something versus when you have the direct experience yourself. And I think that's a great affirmation for me, just reminding me. And I want to emulate that blessed knowingness. We are a piece of God, but even a piece of God is still God itself. But even defining it and calling it God, the moment we say God, we have already limited what it is. because then it has to fall into the construct of everything that we think, that we've ever thought, that we've ever said, that we've ever heard, that we've ever taught by religion, our parents, our culture, our tradition, of what God is. In our human brain, I do believe there is no possible way we can fathom this thing that we would call God. Once we name it, we limit it. We've automatically limited. So as a point of reference, I believe we are each a piece of God. I use that sparingly because God itself can never be divided. And that we are one collective of the same mind, the same field of energy. That is what I truly believe from my out of body experiences.
When you were in the light, did you forget about Darnella?
I'm going to tell you the answer to that would be yes. And can I tell you this? To be very honest with you, there was a tremendous amount of relief. There was a tremendous amount of relief in that. Because with each name comes its story. If I'm not Darnella anymore, then there's no history, there's no sadness, there's no story, there's no broken hearts, there's no broken dreams. And some of the best OBEs I've ever had is when I've awakened back into my body and my brain hasn't come online yet, and I'm nothing. And I'm nothing. People are terrified of being nothing, right? We hold on, we fight for our identities, our race, our ethnicity, our gender, our sexuality, our religion, our political beliefs. We fight for those things. And from my experience, Jeff, honest to goodness, some of the greatest joy I've ever had is when I had no label, when I had no title, when I had no gender, when I had no nothing. Then I was truly free, because with each story comes the burden that we carry living it. So being light is about the best thing I can be right about now, really.
But you're right that we will fight tooth and nail to still identify with this body and carry that burden.
Yeah. And I have too. I mean, I have too. I have to say, I've been afraid. I've been in situations where I felt like I was fighting for my life, which I would love to share with you about the anaconda in my encounter with the anaconda in the jungle. And we have this survival thing, and we have this ego part of ourselves that the identity, which is important here. We have to be able to have some type of distinguished identity as individuated pieces of this thing that we call God. And it's important for our story, and the story itself is important for us to play out this drama. But it's not the story, it's our addiction to the story. That's where it gets really, really challenging. It's our addiction to our past. It's our addiction to what the story and the meaning that we make of the story. So if we can carry the story lightly, it's not as heavy. Not as heavy.
And before you tell us the story about the anaconda, how do you think we separate from God and come here? Like, what's the mechanism and why do we do it?
I mean, a tale as old as time, Jeff, a question that so many people have attempted to answer, so many people answer saying, this is the truth. I always preface this. Everything I say is based upon my own personal experience. This is not anybody's truth but my own. What my belief system is based upon what I've experienced. I truly do believe in my spirit that we cannot separate from God, because if we were to separate from God, we could no longer exist. So I believe there is a connection. We're always connected. Now, our ability to perceive that connection, that's a whole other story. We may not perceive the connection. We come here into this human experience and I'm just going to go by some of the things that have been shared with me by my teachers on the other side of the veil, my master teachers. I am first and foremost a student of the universe and the mysteries of the cosmos. On the earth plane, many times we have these things called lifetimes, or this thing called reincarnational experience. We talked about that in the last video. Oftentimes we're in these experiences creating it's not a punishment, but we're creating a balancing. We're creating a balancing of our energetic expression. We are pure energy, and energy, everything that we do carries an energy signature. Every single thing that we do creates some type of effect that catapults out all the way to infinity. So when we cross the veil in the human experience, we get these opportunity to have a life review, which I got more instruction about that when I was in the jungle from an OBE as well. And if we find ourselves maybe being in a state of imbalance in a certain place, then we will come back into the earth experience to balance out any place where the soul might feel incomplete or unfinished. So let's just use two words: unfinished business. Unfinished business. Things all in the end must always balance out. So I believe, listen, I've seen experiences in my OBEs where I have had a lot of unfinished business. And I came here in this lifetime to balance a lot of that out. And let me tell you, it hasn't always been pleasant. For example, I'll get very specific with you, Jeff. I had an experience as a lifetime as a playboy, as a, like I was a womanizer. And I hurt a lot of women and broke a lot of hearts, and I had no remorse and no deeper understanding. So guess what? In this lifetime, came back to me 1,000,000 fold. And I'm the woman who has experienced the playboy, the womanizer, and the man who has no regard, so that I would know what it is, not as a punishment, but to balance the energy of everything that I have given out. I've had the opportunity, put that in quotes, to experience the other side of it.
Not sure where to go from that. I would say,
does that make sense to you though? Can you
sure.
understand? Like when you hear me say that, just tell me this: how does it hit you in your heart?
It makes complete sense to me. But if you remember, I talked to all kinds of people about all kinds of theories and ideas, and
Yeah, of course.
some of my guests have talked about that we have or can move beyond karma, where we don't have to pay for karma anymore. Since we come here with amnesia and we don't remember past lives, it's like impossible not to just collect more and more karma. It's like a never-ending cycle.
Well, and there you go. That's the catch-22. It's almost impossible not to collect more karma. I want to address something that you said in terms of not having to balance the karma out. And this is a place where I will not pretend to be an expert on it. To the best of my understanding, I don't know how one does that. I'll just say that. I don't know how one does that, because if I'm just looking at the law of physics, for every cause there is an effect. For every cause there is an effect. Just rudimentary law. Now, can the consciousness transcend the physical laws of the? I mean, maybe. But if there is a way to do that, put it this way: I have not learned that in my lifetime. So what I am learning in my lifetime is to become very aware of my habits and my patterns. And where you're going to get the sweet spot is looking at the places where you struggle, where you really, really struggle, where you're repeating yourself over and over. And I talked about that in the last video. That's going to give you deep insight into some of the potential challenges that you've come here to overcome. And, my goal, Jeff, is to work on myself to the point when I leave this planet, I will have made enough reconciliation and any energy imbalance so that now my consciousness expands, that I have more choices. And because you're not grandfathered into enlightenment when you die. You don't just all of a sudden, I see the light, now that's it. No, your consciousness directly, immediately carries over. And you just don't have a body, but you're still the same being that you were here. As time goes on, you get disclosure, things open up. But the goal for me is to just reconcile. And if you just do 3 words: do no harm. Do no harm. Just to the best of your ability, do no harm. You will not incur a whole lot of karma. Now, if you're out here manipulating people, being dishonest, cheating, lying, robbing, stealing, not keeping your word, just the human condition at large, being flaky, all of these things, that's an incurrence of karma. So it's not even like you have to be a holy man and go live in the mountain. Just do no harm. That will elevate you. And then if you can take the golden rule, if you just do one thing, do unto others, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do no harm and do unto others. That right there would even out lifetimes of karma. Just those 2 principles alone.
Many guests tell me that during their life review, that judgment only comes from them. does that still finish karma or not? No one's ever said anything about whether that absolves all the bad stuff you've done. You're just not judged for it. So I don't know if that means you still need to come back and pay for that karma, or you forgive yourself on the other side at that time.
I mean, these are such good questions, and these are such, and for every person you ask, you're going to get a different opinion. You're going to get different, and people writing in the comments will have their own opinion, right? And to my understanding, when I view the whole thing at large, for example, one thing that has helped me just understanding my own journey, if I would have made my transition before I understood one principle alone, just what it would mean for me to choose myself and to honor myself and to honor my body, okay? That came later in life, right? After a whole lot of hurt and disappointment and just a whole lot. It came later in life. I had an awakening, an epiphany, what it means to honor myself, honor my body, and to love myself and to choose myself in relationships with men. Now, if I had died one day before I came to that realization, if I were to look at my life and see what I had created by the choices that I made and just how I dealt with me, I would beg to come back just so I could fix that for myself. Does that make sense? Even though I'm saying, oh, I'm so done with Earth, I don't want to come back here, blah, 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 blah. But if I go and see energetically what I've created, I will beg. I would have, and this is the thing, I'm ready not to come back and incarnate again, because I know there are so many other systems that are probably a lot easier and a lot more beautiful. But I will tell you this, if I look at my life review and I see a place where I've let myself down, and a place I could have showed up better for myself, and a place where I knew I let fear get the best of me, and I will beg to come back, even though I don't want to be here. So think about that in context of it all. When you're reviewing your life and you're seeing things from the context that you may not see now, if you had a chance to come back and repair what you did to yourself, not what you did even to anybody else, but to you, would you take it? That's the question. Would you take that chance?
I would like to ask you a question and play devil's advocate with you.
Okay.
If you're up for it.
Absolutely.
So you have had this problem with men in this life, right? You feel like you're paying off a karmic debt and you've been cheated on and et cetera, et cetera. Is it possible that this is a story you're telling yourself why this is happening to you? And that's a good explanation. Is it because what you've did in your past life? Or is it really true and that's who you really were in a past life?
Well, what a great question. Thank you for playing devil's advocate. I'm always up for the challenge. That is information that was shared with me in an out-of-body experience when I was sitting, and I use that term loosely. I wasn't sitting. I was in the other side of the veil, on the other side of the veil. That was the information that was revealed to me about another lifetime in terms of my challenge with men. So I didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I think what this is, I didn't arrive at it at that. I took it when it was shared with me, there was a part of me that actually believed it only in context of the way that my life here has unfolded and the kind of men. And I was actually told most of those men in my 20s, now listen, once I got into my 30s and 40s, it was more reinforced habit. But in my 20s, a lot of those men were men who were women in other lifetimes, and we were playing out the drama to teach, it was kind of like balancing the energy. But I don't look at karma, even the word, I'm not even really a fan of it because I think it automatically may draw a negative connotation. I would just say this. I would say that the spirit of the soul that is Darnella Ford in other lifetimes and other embodiments potentially created harm and maybe was less than well behaved in certain arenas in her or his life. And in this lifetime, I'm endeavoring to expand my awareness and rectify or just balance the energetic scales of what I have created. So I look at it more of I'm closing the loop or balancing the scale of my energy so that when I leave here, I can leave with a light heart knowing that I have repaired. And for me, it's really about repair. Anything that I have done unkind, that I can repair that. And so that's how I look at it personally. That's just my own philosophy. There's good karma too, as people say, good karma, right? Uh, Small acts of kindness, things that you've done genuinely from a good heart. To me, it's just an energetic, reciprocal exchange in the universe. And it just makes sense to me, Jeff. Every single thing that I do, it lands. Every single thing I think, I say, and I do, it lands. It doesn't just stay in the ethers. So when it lands, what is the string that connects that back to me? Because everything upon everything is returned to sender eventually. Eventually. That's how I look at it. It just energetically and from a physics standpoint, it just makes sense to me.
Do you ever see entities out there when you're astral traveling? Because some of my guests would say that you are being tricked into coming back.
Right. I think that's a fair consideration, and it's something to definitely take into consideration. I feel like at this point in the game, and I can't verify or deny that, because I think it would be irresponsible of me to say, yeah, that's absolutely true, or no, that's absolutely false. I can't verify or deny, but what I can say is we all have an internal sense of our own journeys within the depth of our own soul. So my objective and my goal is to really lean into my own understanding, lean into that deeper inner spirit within me before I'm necessarily just accepting. Even when they said to me, you had other lifetimes, you know what's really interesting? When I was told that, it hit deep, like I felt it, like I felt like it was true. So I didn't just take someone's word on it. I really felt into the depth of what was being shared.
You're saying that you were told this, right? Who's doing the
Okay,
explaining?
thank you. So when I travel outside of my body, I have master teachers that I meet. These teachers will look like they take on a humanoid form. Are they actually human? I don't know. Maybe they take on a human form so that I feel more comfortable. But they appear as sometimes they appear as older women, sometimes they appear as older men, sometimes they appear as holy men, and sometimes they appear as children, and sometimes they appear as trees, sometimes they appear as elements, sometimes they appear as mountains. So when I say I'm a student, I'm a student of life, I'm a student of the universe. It's not just human form. Sometimes they could potentially be some form of extraterrestrial. So it's a telepathic communication with a being that uh, appears to be outside of myself, that lives in another realm, that will take on a form to communicate with me telepathically.
So, when you were in Peru, you had some kind of event with an anaconda.
Yes,
Did it
yes.
almost choke you to death and you had an NDE or what?
So I was in a little village, a little teeny remote village on top of like in the Amazon River. There's this one cliff, and there was a little village up there, and I was taking a little. It was a Saturday, and I was going, and I was just going, seeing some of the sights, or call myself going to see some of the sights. And Jeff, the reason I had the encounter with the anaconda was because first and foremost, I was experiencing a lot of snakes in my out of body travel that was slowing me down because I was terrified of snakes. And in my out of body travels, they were showing up everywhere. Because what we fear, oftentimes we do attract, and we'll meet it right away in an out of body experience. And so it was almost grounding me, and I wanted to overcome my fear of the snake. So a master teacher appeared before me and said, befriend them. So I took that literally, befriend the snake. So I'm in this village, and there was an enclosure, and they had captured a wild anaconda, and they were showing it to people that were coming through. And I was standing there looking at the anaconda, and I mean the snake was probably maybe 14 feet, 12, 14 feet. It was big. It was the biggest snake I'd ever seen, right? And I'm standing there looking at it. It's a massive enclosure, and I'm literally being eaten alive by these mosquitoes because I was just transfixed on this snake. So these two guys who were working there, who were manning it, I guess for a certain amount of money, whatever they let you see the snake. They asked me if I wanted to hold, you want to put the snake around your shoulders. Well, Jeff, in the moment, something told me this is a good way to overcome my fear, right? I didn't think it through, obviously, right? They put the snakes. I'm like, yeah, this is a good way to overcome my fear. I'm feeling very confident that day. They get the snake out, put the snake on my shoulders, and I mean, I was literally holding my breath, as you can only imagine. Okay. Now, one of them was holding the mouth, because you have to hold the mouth, because if you, and the tail, because they could wrap around you, they could suffocate you, right? So you have to have some type of measurement of control. Well, when they put the snake and it got on my shoulders, all of a sudden, I was just like this, holding myself, and the snake could feel all of a sudden, I felt like my heart dropped and I felt my eyes starting to get bigger. You know, your eyes get big, and the snake started to contract and constrict around my neck and my throat, my carotid artery, my jugular vein. Everything started being compressed. Now, two things happened at that moment. One, I was in absolute awe of the strength. You've never ever felt strength like this, ever? There's no animal. The way the snake moves and its power, the anaconda, I could see how they could kill a livestock, a horse, take down a human in a second. They're so powerful. I was in awe of the power. And then, second, in that moment, I was rethinking all of my life choices that led me up into that moment. And the last thing I thought before I thought, is this how my life is going to end? And I said, the irony of this, irony of dying in the jungle by an anaconda. And all I could see was my father at the funeral saying, you know, that girl went down to the Amazon and got ate up bats. And I just literally saw my dad telling the story, and I just thought, this is crazy. But in that moment, it was constricting. And I got really scared. Something rose up in me. I like to believe it's the inner spirit. And the inner spirit said, relax, just relax. And I trusted it, Jeff. And I relaxed. I dropped my shoulders and I just let go. Like all the resistance that I had, I let go. And you know what happened? The moment I relaxed and let go, the snake started to loosen and it just rested on my shoulders and on my neck, and it wasn't gripping me. And all of a sudden, this is so weird, but I felt a sense of euphoria. Like I felt like this anaconda was my teacher. This anaconda was my teacher, and it was showing me that the more I am afraid, the more I'm in resistance to life, the harder my life will be. And that if I can just relax into my fear and just surrender. So I like to say the anaconda taught me surrender. And I think of that example many times because we get afraid. And when you get afraid, you get tense and we feel like maybe we're in threat. So now I like to just remember that moment. And I just remember the snake letting go when I relaxed. I like to believe all of life works that way. The moment you relax and let go, and that's the hard part, is letting go. And the hard part is the surrender, because as they say, we fight to hold on and we fight to let go. But I'm telling you, I feel like I was thinking, if that snake wanted to, it could have probably had its way with me because it was that powerful. And I felt like that was my lesson, and I was okay with the lesson, and it served me well.
Now, while you were down there, you received a message from Mother Earth. Was that
Yes.
during an out-of-body experience or what?
I was experiencing some beautiful working with shaman, and Mother Earth arose through the bottom of my feet and said, it's very important that you give humanity this message. And this was the message. She said that humanity needs to humble themselves, and she said, retreat from the arrogance and elevate the humility, which is an interesting combination of words. Retreat from the arrogance and elevate the humility. She said that humanity has discarded in large circles of the population the wisdom of the earth, and that we are compromised in our well-being, our emotional, mental, and physical well-being when we are disconnected from the earth itself. Mother Earth said we need to put the earth back in the center of all of our well-being. She said our mental health, our emotional health, and our physical health. She said, take your shoes off and walk bare feet upon the earth. The magnetic energy of the earth, the electric energy of the sun, that's electromagnetism, right? The human body itself. When you get sun down and magnetism up, you're meeting right here in the middle of electromagnetism, that's the center point of our well-being. She also said it was really important to sit in water. Sit in water because water activates the memory of your soul. Water carries the memory of your soul. Think about it. How many insights do you get in the shower or the bathtub? How many times have you been in water and something has come to you and you're like, that happens for me all the time. So she said, go to the water, put your feet in the stream, walk barefoot upon the earth, absorb the wisdom. And she said the soil is depleted. She said the reason the soil is depleted on the earth is because humanity is depleted. And the soil of the earth is mirroring the consciousness of humanity. And she said that we would not see peace until we return to the earth. And she said we have it inverted in our consciousness. We pay top dollar for the penthouse when we should be on the ground because that's where our true state of well-being is, not in the penthouse. She said we have it inverted, right? We think being up top is best, but being on the earth, feet on the ground, heart and soul connected to the roots of the earth is really important. Mother Earth was feeling very tired, and she was feeling incredibly disrespected, is what the sense that I got. She didn't use that word, but just she said it was very important to get the message out to bring Earth back to the center. She said Earth should be at the very center of our lives and working with and understanding the medicines of the earth and understanding the, the foods and all of these things of the earth is where our healing is at, or our well-being, excuse me, our well-being is.
The last time you were on, you talked about how you saw a mass exodus of souls leaving the earth. Where are we with that? And have you seen anything else going on or anything new?
Well, I mean, it continues, every soul, and by the way, I think that's a great overlay to this, is very important. Every soul has a trajectory that soul is on. That's a path, right? And the soul itself is aligned with a time to be here, and the soul is aligned with a time to leave here. Oftentimes, you might be seeing a lot of young people, especially, leaving the planet because they're no longer aligned with this frequency, and their soul has carried it as far as it felt that it needed to for this lifetime. So what I am seeing, or what I've been experiencing, is that there are still souls who are aligned to be here. There are still a number of souls who will potentially be moving on from here. But one thing I have been reassured again and again, because I've asked, that it is never an accident. No one ever leaves this plane by accident. It's always orchestrated at a higher level, and you cannot leave Earth without permission. And that was reiterated to me on more than one occasion. You cannot leave Earth really without permission. Think about it. There are some people that experience things and you can't imagine, why are they still here? And there are some people that you think, how in the world did they die? Right? Because at a higher level, the trajectory of that soul had played out to the extent that it needed to play out in this particular drama. And you have to understand too, Jeff, I just called you Death. Death is it's like an offshoot, because death not only impacts the person who's leaving, but a lot of times the greater benefit of death is for those who remain in the physical, because death changes you, especially if you're very close to someone who has transitioned.
When you say
Death is our great teacher.
When you say you need permission to leave here, does that mean just dying and crossing over, or does that mean leaving Earth and reincarnating in another realm somewhere else?
Okay, thank you for that distinction. Permission to exit the body. And that comes from the higher perspective, the higher self, if you will, probably comes from that inner being aspect of you. it's not just a human personality. Because if it was a human personality, most humans aren't ready just to, they trying to save their life with everything they can. It's not from the human perspective. It's from the spirit side. So when I say that and you never leave by accident, and you always leave when you leave, you are always greeted. Think about it. When you're born on earth, you can't be born alone. If no one else is there, your mom is there, right? That gives birth to you. You don't come here alone. It stands to reason. You don't die alone, even if you're by yourself. I want people to know that. I want your viewers to know that. Sometimes people feel like, oh my God, they were alone. No, they weren't alone. I can assure you, there is a great gathering. There's a great gathering around souls who are transcending. There's a great gathering. 2 weeks ago, I went over and I saw a friend, mom, who was 101 years old, and she was she was 4 days from transition. And I knew it. And she was in the bed, and I started singing to her, and I could feel all the energies that were in the room because she was so close to death, and it brought me to tears. It was Jeff, it was so humbling because I knew this woman had been on the earth for almost 2 weeks, it would have been 101 years. And there was a tremendous group of beings that were waiting to welcome her back to the other side of the veil. But she was ready to go 10 years ago. She was ready to leave, but she hadn't had permission yet. She hadn't had permission. I know that sounds weird, but that's how it was explained to me. The word permission was used. It's authorized. It's authorized.
Well, earlier you talked about how you may come back here or you may go to another realm. Where do you think you're going to go?
Well, that's it. That's a great question. I'm going to just say this for the record, and I'll probably look at my life review and laugh that I even said this. I'm aware of that. My goal, I would love to, when I leave this time around, I would love to go into another realm where it's a little bit more harmonious, or let me just say a lot more harmonious, a little bit easier. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd like to explore living in a system where the currency system and the corporations and a lot of the things, unique things we experience on Earth, where we had a different setup. That would be my ideal, right? But that's my personality self speaking. I know that when all is said and done, my soul will measure my journey in this lifetime and the progress that I've made. And ultimately, it's my soul, I do believe, that will decide whether or not I come back for another round of Earth life. I know, Jeff, I have been here many, many, many times. And, I feel that I've made a lot of leadway in this lifetime. I've devoted my whole life to my spirit. It's my whole life. So I'm hoping to balance out and repair any damages or anything unkind that I've done, so that I can go on and I just want to live an easier day-to-day experience. As I think a lot of the people of the earth are just wanting some relief and financial pressures, health issues, relationship stuff. I mean, the people of the earth are going through it. And, the people of the earth are very special. And we will all carry a very special energy signature when we do transition, because we have been in one of the most difficult places in the universe to express energy as. And I believe that. So I say, let us use this opportunity to strengthen ourselves and become aware. That's it. Just aware, just more aware of yourself than you were yesterday. I don't know if that means enlightenment. I don't know what that means. Just can I become more aware of myself today than I was yesterday, and how I'm impacting life at large, the plants, the animals, the rocks, the minerals, the people, the tree kingdom. Can I become more aware of the effect I'm having on the planet from here to infinity? That in and of itself is just a noble goal.
Having a rough time is an understatement, because things
Yeah.
appear to be getting crazier and crazier, and all you have to do is turn on the news.
Yeah.
Have any of the masters on the other side given you any type of information about what's coming?
Well, I was in the Andes of Peru in 2022, and I had a very profound, sitting by a river, the trees began to speak to me. It's so interesting. I have a very unique relationship with trees. People just see trees and they just think they're trees, but trees are sentient beings, and trees have intelligence and awareness. And I have this very unique, incredible relationship with trees. Now, the trees have told me this. The trees have told me a few things. The trees told me a lot of things that in 2022, the trees told me that we were living in a system where there was a lot of unbelievable corruption in terms of the elite, in terms of the top 2%, in terms of world leaders, in terms of heads of tech companies, et cetera, et cetera. The trees also gave me a name that I probably wouldn't be right to say here, but it was almost shocking and just I couldn't accept it. Of the things that this person, the trees, said is responsible for on this planet. And I was heartbroken because this is someone that I looked up to as a child. And it's interesting with what's happening and what's unfolding in the news. What is happening is truly a reckoning. The reckoning, 2026 is a reckoning. And it is a year where you are going to see all that was done in the dark. Oh, baby. And it's happening now. It's going to be shed into the light. And let me tell you, Jeff, way more is coming. And people are going to be shocked at what is coming and potentially some of their people that they admire involved in it. And I think the big thing is never to subject your authority to someone else outside of you. That's what I'm getting of it. People that you look up to as leaders, as teachers, even as spiritual teachers, stay in what I'm always told, stay sovereign. Stay sovereign unto yourself. Do not give your power away. We have been indoctrinated as children to give our power away, especially when you're talking about the authority of people in potentially maybe the church, or when you were little, it was always you got to listen to the minister, you got to listen to this, when you got. And I think a lot of times we have disembarked from our own wisdom. Always defer to the divine spark within, the God within, because subconscious to subconscious, you already know the truth. Whenever you meet with someone, you connect with them, the moment you connect with them, you subconsciously scan them. The subconscious cannot be deceived. The human can, but not the subconscious, because it can translate and read energy at a much more rapid rate, 1 million times faster than the conscious mind. So the moment you connect, your subconscious will already tell you the truth. It will reveal to you the truth. It doesn't matter what the human is saying. And that's what we have to be still enough to get that inner wisdom, connect to what our subconscious says, because the voice doesn't scream. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's not hysterical. It's quiet. Whenever someone gives you something hysterical, question it. Wisdom is quiet. It almost whispers.
Can you give us some practical ways to increase our spiritual wisdom, potentially even to the point where we have our own spontaneous OBEs?
Okay, to increase our spiritual wisdom, one thing I'm going to say is so important is be ever so mindful of this thing called distractions in your everyday life. For many of us, for most of us, we are glued to what? We are glued to this thing right here. We're glued to our phones every day, all day. We have constant noise. First and foremost, you have to be still. You have to be silent. You have to find a way to elevate yourself a bit from all of the noise. Again, wisdom is quiet, and spirit speaks to those who are still, right? So look at how your life is set up. Is it a life of constant motion, constant movement? Are you constantly interacting with people? Are you constantly doing this? Are you constantly stirring up all of the energy? Where is your energy deposit going in your day? Right? So carving out time for stillness, carving out time for meditation, carving out time really for self-reflection and being mindful, which means walking into a room, Jeff, or walking down the street and asking yourself, let me notice something I didn't notice yesterday. If I walk down the street 100 times, and this is 101, let me look for something I've never seen before. Because what you're doing is you're working the muscles, so to speak, of your own awareness. You got to expand that frame. Because if all you're doing is looking at this all day, right? How can you see anything? Because it's all out here. It's all around you, right? So first and foremost, be honest about where your attention is going, and slow it down. You can't get anything rushing fast. Rushing. We're a rush system. Everything is quick, fast, hurry, instant, right? Intentionally slow yourself down, because in the slowdown, in the slowness, in the breath, in the stillness, in the willingness to look outside, open your eyes, you're going to start to become aware. That's going to give you things. So here's the thing: the universe is speaking to you all of the time. All the time, the universe is speaking to you. But we may feel like, well, the universe isn't speaking to me. Well, that's because you have something in your ear all the time. So if I feel like I'm not getting the messages, I always feel like I rely on a high level of feedback from the non-physical. And if I feel that it's not because it's not offering it to me, it's because I need to adjust my frequency and adjust my antenna so that I can perceive what is constantly being offered for me. It's very subtle.
While you were in South America, what other interesting things happened to you?
Well, when I came back from South America, the first week when I came back, it was very interesting. I went to bed one night, typical night, although it's never a typical night with me. And I woke up in a grocery store parking lot, out of my body. And there was a woman in the parking lot who had collapsed. And immediately I appeared in front of her, and she came up out of her body. And I knew one thing at that moment: she had had a massive heart attack. She died right there in the middle of the parking lot. There was all this chaos in the parking lot. And we immediately left the scene. And somehow, I don't know how or why, but I was able to escort this woman to the other side of the veil. And we went through water. We went through a water channel, which was very interesting. And we arrived at a place where she was welcomed and celebrated by all the souls that she had known in other lifetimes. And she had a son across the veil who had passed before her, and he was there. And they had a huge celebration for her. And what was interesting to me about this structure, the seeming structure that we were in, which felt physical and very real, the structure was, it appeared to be in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of this beautiful, beautiful ocean, the structure that went way up into the sky. And what was really interesting is that this structure defied the law of physics, because these apartments or these rooms had patio doors, what we would know as a patio door, and the ground floor, when they opened the door, the water never came in. Now, that's interesting that it was on ocean level, but there was nothing keeping the water out. It was literally opening, and it was like the ocean obeyed its command, and this space, it was not allowed to pass. And I remember thinking that was so incredible, that this appears to defy the law of physics in the way that this structure is just sitting here in the middle of nothing and there's water. But anyway, this woman had an incredible welcoming party. She had it was almost like a big feast, a big celebration. And I'm not gonna lie, Jeff, I've met someone over there who I had taken a little fancy to be honest with you. Isn't that funny? Who would meet someone out of body? Me. God forbid they be in the earth experience. Of course, they're on the other side of the veil. And Jeff, I'm not going to lie to you. I had a nice conversation with him, and I was enjoying him so much. And I felt like I liked him. Maybe I had a little crush. And he was beautiful to me. He was really beautiful. And I got a little carried away with myself over there. And I was just eating, and it was like I was at my own welcome. Like I had left the earth plane. And then all of a sudden I started feeling this pull, like, oh wait, you still have a body. You have to go back to the body. And I remember I was so sad to leave. I was so sad. And my body was pulling, like the cord was pulling me back. And I came back the way I went. And what was interesting, Jeff? Same exact way. I came back through the water. Now check this out. As I'm going back through the water, guess who's with me? There are babies. There were babies alongside me that were coming into this realm. And I was like, oh my God, I'm coming back the way that some of these babies are coming in. It was really beautiful. I mean, it was really beautiful. And I actually, that particular experience was very, I had a hard time grounding from that one, because I really felt like I had gone to someplace extravagant and met someone that I really liked. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a little sad to come back. It was very beautiful.
You said earlier that we that we astral travel or OBE every night in our dreams, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, your story just reminded me of a previous guest I had years ago. She's a PhD psychologist, and she says that she has a spirit marriage. And basically, she has a human spouse on this side and another spouse on the other side that she's with every night in her dreams.
I believe it. Oh, I believe
And
it.
I wanted to see, what's your take? Do you believe that's
Well, let me tell
possible?
you, I didn't even want to jump into this because I know how this may sound to the average person who doesn't have this experience, but I did, I have experiences with men on the other side of the veil, and it's almost like it's different than it is here, though. What do I mean by that? When you're engaging someone on the other side of the veil, there are no secrets. So all of your truth is arising. There's no facade, there's no mask. So when I was connecting with that young man on the other side of the veil, it was like literally soul to soul, heart to heart. So it feels very, very pure. I think we have to work through a lot of layers in this experience of the human experience, people's past, your trauma, their trauma, the baggage and luggage, all those things to get to a really pure connection. And you're dealing with all of our fears, all of our history, our story, our narrative. But there, when you connect, it's different. It's oh my God, it's expanded. Emotion is so amplified. So love, connection, very profound.
Do you also meet ascended masters on the other side, like Jesus or Buddha?
I well, I have well, okay. Okay, I'm gonna share this one thing. It's funny because I never like to share this because I know people are real sensitive about Jesus. Yeshua ben Joseph, they're very sensitive. It's a very guarded religious figure. But once, Jeff, 2010, I had an experience with Yeshua ben Joseph, who otherwise is known as Jesus. I was doing some readings on some of the Jesus material, and I was reading a book called The Keys of Yeshua, I think it was. I can't remember if that was the name of the book, but the book was very impactful for me. And one night I went to sleep, and this being appeared in my room, and I could see him, and I said, oh my God, that's Jesus. And I felt all this love. But I said, you know what? I'm never going to tell anybody that because who was ever going to believe that? And you're going to come under such high level of scrutiny if you say something like that. But to the best of my understanding, it was Yeshua ben Joseph, and he felt my connection to him in a heart space while I was reading this material. And I believe that's why he made it was like a cameo. He didn't say anything, just poured love into me for a few seconds and then disappeared. But I never forgot it. It was beautiful, actually.
What other deep wisdom that you've learned from the other side of the veil can you share with us?
Okay. I think a couple things that come to mind immediately, talking about other people. This helped me a lot because so many of our wounds and our issues in the human experience revolves around other people. Okay. What I was shown and what I was told and what I was received in an expanded state of consciousness, other people are fractals of light projected by your own consciousness. And they are in your experience because they are representing an aspect of you, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it is suppressed or repressed. Every single person that you are encountering is an aspect of you, but a fractal of light. And now, Jeff, when you transition, I was shown that all of those fractals of light return to you. So everything returns to you. In the life review, this is so good and it makes sense. In the life review, what is the one thing that they always have in common? That they can see what they did and they know how it felt to the other person, right? You've heard that over and over. I did this and I knew how that made them feel, whether it made them feel good or bad. The only reason you're able to experience that is because that fractal of light is returning to you. So other people are you. projected from your own consciousness as a fractal of light. You are interacting with your own projection that you are calling by the name of. So you're married, right? You have a wife, and she seems very much like her own person, and she is her own person. But the aspect of her that you're interacting with is the projection of consciousness that you are projecting onto her.
My interpretation of what you're saying is my wife or your spouse or your friend is is its own sentient being, but we're projecting ourselves on them and interacting with them from our perspective and not really paying attention to who they really are.
Right. And here's the thing that would shock you. Do I even dare to say this? Because some people are going to be like, what? But the woman that you're experiencing or the partner that you're experiencing is really interacting with your, it's almost like, how do I say this? I'm trying to land this in a way. It's very hard because we view them as separate from us, but they are only responding to our what's running in us, frequency, our energy. They are responding to our programs. They are responding. So basically, let's say you have one person and you have two people that interact with this one person. One person may experience them as very generous, very kind, very loving. The other person may experience them as very cheap, unkind, may not have nice things to say, may experience them as being very unkind. Now, the person, which one is the person? The kind, generous person or the unkind, very stingy, withholding person? Well, depends on what program you're running because they're only a projection of you. So both can appear, right? So in that way, it may not be entirely fair to say someone is a certain way because someone else can come along and have a very different experience of them if they are, let's say I have a victim consciousness and I experience people oppressing me, right? So I'm naturally going to be aligned of attracting an oppressor. But is that about them or is that about me? And that's where it gets really tricky because most of the time in our own mind, it's usually about them. It's about them, what they did, what they did, what they did. I work with couples, and when working with couples, it's always about the other people looking at the couple and blaming them. But we have to be able to, true freedom, Jeff, is being able to take accountability and responsibility for the programs, unconscious they may be, but that we are running in our own system that is collapsing that sort of behavior into material reality. That's a hard one. But if you can attune to it and presuppose that just for one moment, people are interacting with your programs, not with you. It's the system of programs that we have running. Changes the world to view it that way.
Darnella, before we finished up here, you told me that you got a message for me in the jungle. What did you learn?
I did. One, I want to thank you because Mother Earth told me to reach out to Jeff to share the message, and she said you would allow me to share the message. So thank you, Mother Earth. Thanks you. Your time is coming. Your time is coming, and you should be patient. And one thing that's very important, Jeff, is that you don't compare yourself to other YouTubers who may have started after you, but may have more subscribers and maybe killing it in the field, so to speak. You have a very specific journey and a very specific calling. It was told to me that you were of the light. Your work that you're doing on this planet is of the light. And in that, you are going to attract subscribers in alignment with people who are needing very specific things from you. It lives beyond your understanding of the algorithm and the numbers and the way it's not going to unfold in the way that you think. And your job, your only real job, is to do like I did with the anaconda. Relax, relax. It is happening. It is happening for you, but it's happening in divine timing, and it's happening in accordance to how much you yourself can relax into the brilliance of what you're actually really doing on this planet. Because let me tell you something, if you were to make your transition today, when you hit the other side of that veil and you see the body of work that you've created and what you've done, it would it would humble you in a way that you can't see right now. And I want you to know you were spoken of very highly by this planet, and that's not a little thing. Mother Earth, you were spoken of very highly. So I want to thank you for being a comrade and a fellow journeyer on this planet in service to the light. I thank you for that.
Well, I'm kind of speechless, and thank you for sharing that message with me.
You're so very welcome. Jeff, can I share you something? One more thing that feels very important for me. The topic of forgiveness,
Sure.
wisdom around forgiveness. This happened when I was in the Amazon rainforest, and it just feels really important. It's personal, but it feels important for me to share. Um, I grew up, my father had severe trauma. So growing up with my father was not easy. It created a lot of strain in my relationship with my father in my 20s and my 30s, and I had to deal with and help myself from hatred and resentment and very deep things, especially in my 20s. When I was in the jungle in December, I was at home for Thanksgiving, just to put preface. In November, I was in Phoenix for Thanksgiving, and one of my sister's friends had died of cancer. A young woman had an 8-year-old daughter. And I saw my father with this little girl, and he's not a man of many words or emotions, but just the way he looked at this little girl, he showed this little girl so much compassion just in his eyes. And it just touched my heart to see him grow into being that kind of soft person, right? And when I was in the jungle, one night at 2 in the morning, my consciousness expanded and I saw my father in that moment, and it froze. Time brought that moment to me. The grace of spirit brought that moment to me, and it froze it. And then from that moment, I saw my father's soul. Like his soul shined through that moment. And I was so humbled in what I saw. I literally dropped to my knees and I began to pray out loud. And I've never done this. And I began to pray out loud for my father's soul. Like I prayed for his soul, for grace and compassion for what he lived and for what he perpetrated in his own ignorance. And I prayed like I'd never prayed before. And I just want people to know that beyond the deed and the act is the most beautiful of souls. And if you can just ask the spirit to show you their soul, that would bring you a tremendous amount of help. We are better than the things that we do. We are better than the things that we have done. And I just want people who may be going through a hard time, maybe struggling to forgive and abuse or misuse or something, just please let that story land in their heart. That's my hope.
Darnella, if people want to find out more about what you're up to, do you have a website?
Yes, of course. They can look at my website, which is journeytoworthy.org. And that's Journey T-O Worthy. And you'll put that in the show notes, right, Jeff? You put that in the show notes.
Sure.
And then I really want to thank the viewers. When I was on last time, some of them bought my book, The Next Breath. I do these facilitation of retreats in the Amazon rainforest. I have another one leaving in December. So I would love to invite anyone who feels called to the journey. And I'm here, Jeff. I'm here to be of service. However spirit feels inspired to use me, I'm saying yes to it. So thank you so very much.
Darnella, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
If I could leave it with one thing, Jeff, I would say this. So much of our life doesn't look like how we thought it was going to look. Matter of fact, I know very few people that it turned out the way they thought, right? And a lot of times that can be experienced in the form of disappointment or in the ending of things we thought would be forever. And someone dying that we thought would be with us through the life journey, or whatever form or shape that takes. And I want people to understand that even though it may not look like you thought it would look, or that it may not be what you wanted, still look for the beauty in whatever. Look for the beauty in the gift. Look for the beauty in the gift in whatever shows up. My best friend died at 38, wasn't supposed to be. The beauty in the gift was I got a chance to walk with her for many, many, many years in this life. The beauty and the blessing of whatever shows up is extracting the good out of whatever situation that you find yourself in. I believe, and I don't always see it, Jeff, to know that whatever's happening, there's something on the other side of it for us to learn or grow into or become better something and souls as far as having lived it. Never, never overlook the gift that is your life, no matter how it turns out, no matter how it shows up. There's something here, and really to each and every person watching this, it's important that you're here. Every person is playing a part. This is a non-repeatable, phenomenal time on the earth plane. Never will this moment ever come again. So the fact that you are here on the front lines, you have bragging rights from here to infinity. And just develop your spiritual practice, reach out for support, stay true to the truth of who you truly are. That's what I would say. I know I gave you a lot of different things, but that would be the essence of it.
Darnella, thank you for your message, and thank you for coming back and being my guest again.
Thank you so much. I love it, and I love the viewers. Thank you so, so much, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.